In this video, we're going to go ahead and we're going to revisit switches. However, we are going to be focusing on how switches learn MAC addresses. And I'm going to be giving you a broad overview of how this works. Now, I'm not going to go into all the detailed steps, so we are going to leave some things out, but I'm going to cover all the basics so you have a good idea of how switches work. So let's go ahead and let's get started. The first thing we need to know is that switches learn MAC addresses by a source MAC address. And this will make more sense as we go through this. Another thing that you need to know is that whenever you send a packet of information out on a network, it's going to include two key things. It's going to include a source MAC address, and it's going to include a destination MAC address. And the easiest way to explain why we're doing this is if we just think about emails. Whenever you send somebody an email, you're going to include who it came from, that would be the source address. And when you send your email to the email server, you're going to include the destination email address where you want it to go to. And so when we're talking about any sort of information going on a network, it has to have the source MAC address so the switch knows where it came from, and it has to have the destination MAC address so the switch knows where you want to send this information. So now let's get into the process of how it works. So let's say that this switch here is a brand new switch and we just plugged it in and we plugged our 3 computers into it on the network, and its MAC address table is completely empty. There's nothing in there. And what we want to do is that we are on computer A and we want to send a packet of information to computer C down here. And so our goal is to get our information down here to computer C. So let's go ahead and let's walk through this process. So when the switch receives the packet of information from computer A, what it's going to do, it's going to look in its MAC address table and it's going to see if it has anything recorded for computer C. So it's going to look in here and it's going to say, well, is computer C with the MAC address of CCC, is that on port switch 1, 2, or 3? And because it's empty, it doesn't know. Now it does know, however, because computer A sent it a request that on port 1, because this request came from port 1, it now knows that the computer on port 1 is going to be computer A with the MAC address of AAA. And so it's going to go ahead and record that in this table here. And this is a simplified table to show you how this works. And also, these are not real MAC addresses. Remember in the previous lecture, a MAC address is hexadecimal, and it looks nothing like this. I'm just using these very simple ones just for the sake of space on the screen and for the sake of the explanation to make it much more simplified. So getting back to that, so now it knows that this computer is on port 1, and it's going to record that in the MAC address table. However, it doesn't know where computer C is. So what it's going to do is that it's going to flood all the ports. So it's going to send a request out to port 3 and port 2, and it's going to say, hey, I have a packet of information for destination address, MAC address CCC. If you are this computer, respond and let me know. Well, computer B on port 2 is going to say, well, I am not that computer. My MAC address is BBB. So I don't need to respond. So it's just going to go ahead and disregard that packet of information. It's not going to respond to the switch. Now, when computer C gets it on port 3, it's going to say, okay, well, wait, that matches my MAC address. So I'm going to go ahead and respond. And it's going to respond to the switch and say, yeah, that's me. I am on port 3. And what will happen is, if we jump to the next slide, what will happen now is that since C acknowledges that request, the switch is going to say, okay, well, now that I know CCC is on port 3, I have that information, and now we have that information, and whenever computer A wants to communicate with computer C, if a data request comes in, we're just going to send it out to this port only, and we're not going to send it out into any other ports. And same thing, if we have a request coming from computer C up to computer A, again, it's just going to come up, and it's only going to go out to port 1. And that's how the process works. I did skip some of the detailed steps, but that's just really how it works in a nutshell. So if the switch doesn't know, first off, where it is, it's going to go ahead and send a request out to all the ports, and only the correct computer is going to respond, and it's going to go ahead and populate this MAC address table, and then from that point on, communication is only going to happen where it should happen. And so the same process is going to happen for computer B. And if we have more computers on here, again, the same process is going to continue to happen to the point where this MAC address table is completely filled out. And when it is completely filled out, any sort of data request going from one computer to the other is only going to be going out the correct port. It's not going to be going out to other ports. So for example, if computer P was B was eventually memorized and it's trying to send data down to computer A, again, it's only going to go out to port 1. It's not going to go down to port 3 and it's not going to flood it. And so that's why a switch is an intelligent device, because it learns where the MAC addresses are and it assigns them to the proper port. And instead of flooding information out to every single port, it only sends information where it's supposed to go. So that's our quick introduction to how switches learn MAC addresses and how they work in a nutshell. If you want to find out all the specific details, I highly recommend that you just go out to YouTube and you do a search for this, because there's some really great videos on here, especially for some of our networking exams like the Network Plus and the CCNA, where they go into great depth and they tell you how this works. But this is more than good enough for this course. And again, if you have any questions, as always, let me know. If not, thanks for watching and we'll see you at the next video.